Good afternoon, Jay. We're back again, man.
We're back again after a wonderful vacation for both of us. It's been nice.
Think anybody noticed?
I doubt it. my team has barely noticed, so we'll see.
Well, we're back in your face again, and we're going to touch on something that we touched on a couple of times, but I think it'd be good to kind of consolidate our thoughts around delegation because that's a weak point.
Yeah.
Man. I suffer
I
from
would
it
say
too.
it's the number one thing that I see that holds back contractors from scaling. So again, when we get beyond ourselves, and this is where, once you've moved off the tools and like you're starting, this is where most guys spend a very long time suffering. Is not realizing how to delegate, not figuring it out earlier rather than later, and that on its own, I mean, that's a very big contributing factor to why most contractors fail.
Yeah, and I struggle with it too. And I'll be honest with you, like part of it is letting go. But I think I could deal with that. I think I can deal with that. What I kind of struggle with is really identifying the tasks, like in the level of importance, is like low, medium, high importance. And you touched on that.
Totally. So, I mean, it's very simple. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to look at our business as a scale, and it's a circulating scale. So when we start off as tradespeople, I mean, the problem is that we're getting paid decent money for our time.
Mhm.
All right. Let's say it's 40, 50 bucks an hour on the tools. Okay. Then we get this, crazy idea to start a business, and we go into business, and then all of a sudden we're faced with tasks that are $10 an hour tasks that we hate doing, $12 an hour tasks that we hate doing, and they don't get done. And then things start to accumulate. So bookkeeping, like all the administrative stuff, like, again, it's insane to believe that one person can actually manage and run a business. It takes a whole team,
100%.
right? So, but herein lies the problem is that until you get enough behind you where you can afford to hire people, and everyone has this belief in their head that it just people magically show up fully trained, ready to go, and like solving your problem, like
Yeah.
as if they can read your mind, and that's where most contractors have a very big gap that takes a long time to fill. Is they don't realize that, hey, you know what? Especially if they've never really hired someone to do admin, hired anyone to do sales, hired anyone to do production. It's all in their head, right? And what's in their head may not necessarily be right. It may actually, in fact, be wrong because they've never put the time and effort and energy like they're tradespeople, right? So a lot of the frustration and anguish comes from I can't find good people. Well, let's kind of dissect that first, right? Even if you had a good person, what exactly and how exactly would you hand these things off? And
And
what I
would you know it?
see what I see most commonly happen is somebody hires a spouse, a niece, and a nephew, or somebody that's not qualified to actually do the tasks that they're trying to delegate, and then it opens up this whole resistance again, in that they don't know exactly what the job is that they need to have done. So until they realize, and until someone helps them to realize, or again, maybe they find somebody good that takes the problem off, it's a mystery box, right? So again, we end up being put into the situation of just being reactive, and we know when we're reactive, we do stupid things, right? So a lot
Yeah.
of times when I'm talking to contractors that are extremely busy, we'll call it, and busy is not profitable, busy is not successful or productive, but very busy. What I tend to find out is that, hey, you know what? We're wearing 5 hats. Not one hat is actually being done well, and we have no clue. We have no clue how much money we're losing and how much life is being removed from our lives, just with the stress and the anxiety that comes with doing shit that you shouldn't be doing, right? So again, a classic point that I can make here is we spoke to before I left on holidays, I had 3 back-to-back sales calls with the same situation, and I'm going to call these the symptoms. Most people think it's the problem, but it's actually the symptom. Okay, so
Okay.
the symptoms are, I have all these things that I have to do, and I have no time. That's the symptom. We hear it all the time, right? And when you start asking questions about, oh, it's interesting, how are you spending your time? Well, I'm running here, I'm running there, I'm getting material here to my guys. I've got to set this job up. I've got to do this. I'm like, and then I start asking questions. Well, like, who's keeping score here? How do you know if you're making money? Oh, well, my bookkeeper gets to that at the end of the year or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. So like you could possibly be doing all of this and not making money. And in your head, all right, in your heart of hearts, that you're probably not. So what is that insanity, or like what's going on here? And really when you start to dig down and you figure it out with them, is that, hey, listen, there's a very good reason most guys that come off the tools didn't become accountants, didn't go to school to be marketing managers, didn't go to school to be sales
Yeah.
managers. And a lot of it has to do, again, with their ability to delegate these things out with confidence. Okay. So the other thing I think we've talked a lot about is maybe they do have a very good grip on how to do something, but they make it so complicated that only they can do it. Right. So like the classic example is the spreadsheet that nobody in the world could read but them.
Yeah.
Right. I see those all the time. I'm like, they show it to me. I'm like, nope, don't want anything. Like, if I can't glance at this and know what the story is, like, who else are you going to delegate this to? And I see it in estimating.
Awesome.
I see it it's impossible.
Yeah.
Right. And, they'll start to explain it and then they get frustrated explaining it to me. I'm going like, listen, I'm a fully competent, like there's nothing you could probably put on the table that I wouldn't grasp and understand in construction. Right. And you're going to now hand this off to somebody that's like
That's
an
a good point.
employee. Like,
Yeah.
there's just no forethought put into these things. And a lot of times it's not a complete, handoff. All right. So what we end up doing is we do things out of reaction or being desperate. Let's say we're going to hand off the admin to my wife. Great. Day one comes around, wife shows up to get to work. He puts all the hopes and dreams on her, walks away, and that's, I delegated, done. How the hell is it one person supposed to figure this stuff out? And that's, again, if we think back to, how we're onboarded as tradespeople, it's kind of how most of us got onboarded as well. But that does not work well, and it does not end well when you're trying to do that with regular administrative staff, salespeople, production managers, all of that. They need the structure, they need the information, they need to know what the steps and processes are so that they can actually take that task off your plate. So then, when things don't go well and it adds more to their plate, what do? They get small again.
Do it myself. Yeah.
Right? They get small again. They never recognize it. So I have a really great exercise that I do a lot with our members to really kind of drive this home. And it has a lot to do with time, because time, when you start to look at the tasks that you're filling your day with, that'll tell you what you need to delegate. Well, it's very easy. We're going to put 4 categories. We're going to have our $10 to $50 an hour tasks. Okay, that's what group 1. We've got our $50 to $150 tasks. That's group 2. $150 to $250 an hour tasks, and then our $250 to $1,000. I bet you with absolute certainty, when you start to look at that and figure out how many tasks that you're doing during the day that are constitute to $250 or $1,000 an hour, like $250 to $1,000, somewhere in there. All right, it's probably next to zero for most guys. All right. And the real art of delegation is understanding, as the CEO or the owner of your business, every single time you go down and you do and perform a task that is, let's say it's a project management task, that's a $50 an hour task all day long. You can find someone for $50 an hour to do it. Properly handing it off, properly thinking about the training, how that person's going to actually take it off your hands, that's actually $1,000 an hour task, right? Yeah. But the act of actually doing it is $50, all right, all day long. So if I hear the CEO that he's out on these job sites and, well, no one can talk to my customers, we put up our own barriers, and then, we get frustrated because, well, we've got all this stuff on our plate. Well, you're doing it to yourself. And it's the letting go thing, right? And in order to let go, it's really planning. Like, you have to plan. How are you going to actually offload this task? How are you, what are the steps involved? What are the intricate pieces. And that's where most contractors aren't willing to put in the time and effort and energy, and probably don't realize that that's the bridge from 50 to 250 to $1,000 an hour, right? And as the CEO, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again so everyone realizes, like, as the CEO of your company, if you have registered a business in your name and you're out trying to earn a profit for that business or make money for that business, your sole task is, well, there's two. We don't ever lose the shareholders' money, and we earn a profit for the shareholder. All right. How do you do that? Doing $10, $50, even $150 an hour tasks. How do you do that? And if you were the shareholder, meaning that you didn't have anything other than your money invested in the business, and you were watching your CEO run around doing all these things, what would you would fire him, right? Because you can't grow at scale. Like, it really comes down to that simple of thinking. When we're really, when we really unravel we take the onion apart. That's the truth behind it, right? If more people would think that way around how they're spending their time, first of all, they would have a lot more free time, number one. And all of a sudden, those delegation things would become more of the commitment to teaching someone else to do the lower value tasks, getting somebody else to become very good at it.
Well, I've got a bit of a question. Let's just assume that money is no object, because I know that's kind of a little bit of an objection too. But when you're delegating these tasks,
that's a symptom.
Okay, I want to get into that, but just quickly, the fear of not having enough work for the person you're delegating it to. So how do you resolve it?
Simple. So think of everything as a symptom. All right. When you're saying, I don't have enough work, I don't have enough money, like, is that true? Or is that what's stopping you from taking action? Because the reality, the real thing is, if you continue to do those things, you're right, you won't have money, and you will, like, it's the opposite of what you believe. And again, it's so hard to try and get guys to wrap their head around it. But I've said it to you probably a couple of times. Like, when I realized that, hey, the more time that I spend, even if I spent my day spending 2 hours a day, but I only did the $1,000 an hour tasks, okay, I've still earned the company money. All right. And the art is in the delegation. When you look at all the things that need to be done, it's not getting overwhelmed and shutting down and trying to just plow through them yourself. It's, hey, you know what? I've seen this task come up. I'm going to train someone that is going to be more responsible with them. All right. That I can build into their daily routine. Now, even if, like, let's just say in a scenario one, you paid somebody and you paid them for 8 hours at $20 an hour to do all your administrative tasks for 8 hours a day. All right. That allowed you to do one more task that was $250. Are you up or are you down?
I like that.
Right.
It's a good point. Like, it almost seems like what comes first, like the putting the cart before the horse, but really the truth is, what you're saying is, there's no momentum at all if you don't.
There's zero. And again, guys get landlocked in this position, and the fear and the symptoms that you're explaining, like, what if I don't have enough work? Well, think about it the other way. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're not going to have enough work, because there's not enough time in the day to do all the things that it requires to run a job, produce a job, like, do all these things. It's physically impossible, even if you're the hero. And it only leads to burnout. And that's the thing that I think most guys really underestimate, is just, how long things take when you're doing them well. Right. So again, think about, the trade that you have, the skills that you have. You've done them over and over and over again. They're seared in your head, like, again, but we underestimate what the other things that it takes to run a business require. Right. And then we assume that, hey, you know what? I'm going to run in and put out all the fires. I'm going to put all the, the energy and momentum. And it's really, again, this is where guys don't make that growth transition into, a manager or a CEO or anyone else. They're not, their mindset is about the value of their time. And, like, am I doing things, first of all, that I like and I enjoy and that I'm good at? All right. And that are going to bring, value to the business. And again, if I want to be a CEO, there's no owner of a business out there that I'm aware of besides maybe a truck and a ladder guy, that's worth anything less than $250 an hour. So when you start to look at your day and your activity and you show me your schedule and then you give me all of your symptoms, I can tell you right away, okay, these are excuses. You are mentally blocking yourself from success. All right. And it's just simple math. If we just use the math, all right, behind what I'm saying here, it becomes very logical. All right. Again, what's 3 extra sales a month? Right?
Yeah, 100%, and that
Right.
alone, that'll finance everything. So, what would
Well,
you
easily.
say? For sure, when you look at it that way, like what would you say to anybody that's like, okay, so what's my first step? What do I
So the
do
first step,
today to make this happen?
and if you want to reach out to us, we have them. But the first step is to audit your time. So, like everything, it comes to accountability, right? You need to audit your time. You need to take a period of time where you're going to commit to just writing everything down that you're doing. Because most of us at this point, and I know I'm guilty of it and I've done it before, we subconsciously do things, right? Now, again, when I ask contractors, hey, man, what did you do like last Wednesday? Oh, I have no idea. Forget. Like, he may be running around delivering material. He may have been doing all this crazy stuff. And it doesn't dawn on them until they get it. Like, again, it comes back to data, right? I could tell you till I'm blue in the face that the sky is blue and you're going to tell me it's a different color, right? I've run into this so many times, and that's not my job to tell you, okay?
Mhm.
The only way that I win in this game for you, all right, is for you to prove it to yourself, right? So take a week, 2 weeks. 2 weeks is ideal. All right, that's enough to really get a grip on it,
Yeah,
and write down everything that you're doing. Just every 15 minutes, you're writing down what you did. Just keep it in a notebook, whatever. And what you're going to find, and again, you can categorize it. You can put it into sales, marketing, profit, like you can
yeah,
production, like you can categorize it. We have a great tool that it's for free. We'll hand it off to you if anyone's interested.
yeah,
And again, when you get to the end of those 2 weeks, what you're going to realize is what you need to delegate. All right, because it's going to be blatantly obvious when we take those things and we rearrange them and put them in the categories they belong. Is this a $40 an hour, $50 an hour? Like, now all of a sudden we know. And what's consuming our time is probably those lower value tasks. If you really feel stuck, if you really feel burnt out, if you really feel, like, man, this is too much, or like I want to give up, or like I'm going nowhere,
yeah,
all those kind of emotions, it comes from doing the things that you shouldn't do. And it's your subconscious telling you that. Like, everybody's smart enough to realize, right? Like, if you're running a business and you're trying to be the labor, the brains, the operation, all of those things
100%.
at once, you can't be good at all of those things, right? And most of us walk around and we try to be too many things, and it's costing us all the profit. It's costing us our time with our family. It's costing us all of it comes back to time, right? It's the biggest asset you own, and until you take accountability for that, until you prove it to yourself. I mean, again, I go through these conversations over and over again, and people are like blown away. But it's just math, right? Like, you spend long enough doing really low value tasks, it's very hard to grow a business, and it's very easy to feel burnt out. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed. It's very easy to feel like you're not living up to your full potential. It's also very easy to create fear, and fear is your excuse for not changing,
Yeah,
right? So the
yeah,
fear
almost
is,
always.
what if I don't have enough work? What if I don't have this? Well, what if you just stayed where you are? Is that not worse than all of those things combined? Like, think about it, right? Like,
And
really
that's the
think about it.
consequence. Yeah,
But they're living their consequence. They're living their consequence, and I see it, like, have like weekly, right? Multiple times, and their biggest fear is coming true, and that they're stuck, and that the time that they're spending isn't leading them anywhere. Yeah, you're right, because you haven't learned this major key thing. It's when you get control of your time and you learn how to delegate. All right, that's the first, like, major kind of management move. Okay,
yeah,
it gives you more time to focus on job costing, on all those other important things, and all of a sudden, the opportunities start to open up. We start to make more money. We start to say no to more things. Make sense?
You mentioned, yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that you have a solution that can get people
Yeah.
started. Want to tell, just drop that because I think
Yeah,
it's
we
important.
have a yeah. We'll drop it with this out there, but we have a time audit. Actually, most people get it when they join our group. So if you're
Mhm.
watching in our group, everyone's received it, and probably few people have gone through it and really understand it. But it's basically the formula to figuring out your time. All right. Now we have another tool which is very helpful. Is actually calculating how much you're worth an hour, which is really important as
That's
a
cool.
CEO. If anybody again wants it, drop some comments. Let us know. We'll get it to you. But that's very powerful as well. Once you know that number, it's just like you can start to rewire some of those bad habits you've built with realizing, hey, before I go ahead and do this, is this 250? Is this $25 an hour? Because that's going to give you the motivation to actually hire someone, to get someone in place, because the numbers again are right in front of you. It's the most logical way to go about
Yeah, I think everybody is here to figure out a way to scale their business and to grow, right?
it. Right.
And without this, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's just not possible.
It's zero. There is zero chance. Okay, until like if again you want to look at the habits of successful people in this industry, you're going to find that they are absolutely on top of their time. They know the value of their time, and they're only focusing on tasks that bring them bring them value. Again, what would you rather have? 1% of everybody's effort, or just 100% of your own?